please. Well, good morning. Oh, please. Good morning.
Good morning.
Slightly better. My signaling is off. My name is Brian Wickman. I'm the outreach coordinator for the National Institute for Direct Instruction, NIFTI, and I'd like to welcome you all wholeheartedly to the 41st National Direct Instruction Conference. It's a great pleasure for us to be here, and we're thrilled that you would take 1 week out of your very busy summer to come to Eugene to engage in the best staff development since the last NIFTI National Direct Instruction Conference you attended. And as the slogan for this conference goes, your future is bright with direct instruction. And you will find throughout this week the expertise that the trainers share with you is going to help you in your classrooms in the upcoming year and on through the rest of your career. So I would give you just a brief little applause for coming here today and thanking you. So there's that. Give yourselves a hand. I'd like to tell you just a little bit about the National Institute for Direct Instruction, NIFTI. NIFTI was founded about 25 years ago by Zig Engelmann. The idea behind NIFTI initially was to show what could be achieved in schools utilizing a full immersion model of direct instruction. That meaning using it in all subject areas and also in your whole school construction, adhering to the principles of what it takes to maximize the amount of instruction that students are able to receive so that we can help particularly our less advantaged students catch up and have level the playing field so that they have the same opportunities as some of their more appropriately, boy, I'm really botching that one up, as well as some of their more advantaged peers may have access to. So from that, NIFTI started working in Utah at the Accelerated Student Achievement Project, where we took 3 schools from different settings and showed how well those students could all achieve on a uniform basis. And it was pretty amazing stuff that was achieved. From there, went to schools across the country, into Baltimore, Nebraska, Florida, all over the United States, expanded actually for a period we were working in Guam in their entire school system, 24 of their elementary schools. We've got projects now all the way over in Australia, so as well as still staying here in the United States. So it's just amazing to see how the organization has grown. We also, several years ago, started branching out into, we have a press, we have some publications that we put out, which you can find in our store. Most notably, we just came out, hot off the press, with this program reference chart that is first time being made publicly available at this conference. If you can get this in our DI store for the mere price of $10 plus 1 like on Facebook. So just go to the NIFTI Facebook page, like us, and you'll save $5 whole off this book. And so that will make Christina so very happy if you do that. She likes likes. So NIFTI also branched off into doing outreach events a few years back where we were making, prior to that, the only way to have access to the NIFTI resources in terms of our coaches training, our leadership training, things along those lines, was to actually be a full-scale NIFTI implementation. Now, through conferences such as this, academies such as our coaching academies, you have access to the technical details. You don't have the ongoing support, which we highly recommend that you receive, if not from NIFTI, another venue or another outlet, but we definitely feel like we're providing a great service by making some of that technical expertise available to the public on a no commitment basis. We then branched off into having memberships into the organization. Memberships allow individuals to have access to some of the forms and information that, again, would only be available to the schools that are implementing with us. There's information on signing up as a member of NIFTI at the store, and so I urge you to do that. There's some great benefits, among them a 20% savings on our trainings. If you were a member of NIFTI prior to signing up for this conference, your membership fee more than would have offset the expense of the savings that you receive at the conference. So, a few details about the conference. I want to go over this schedule that you all received along with your name tag. You do all have a name tag. We ask that you wear it during the time just because our trainers like to be able to say hello and they like to be able to use a name along with it. So wear your name tag and make sure that they're wearing theirs. The schedule is pretty straightforward as printed. However, a couple of little exceptions. Today, there is a typo with the schedule for today. It says that lunch is, your session A starts at 10 and ends at 11:15, and then something mysterious happens between 11:15 and 11:45, because that's when lunch begins. Actually, your session continues until 11:45. Trainers, please make note of that. You will work from you'll be in session from 10 till 11:45 this morning. The rest of the schedule as printed is looking accurate to me, except for there are not two July 30ths in this month. There is really only one. It's this Friday, July 30th. It's the 31st. Lastly, details about the conference. This is not a paper type grab. We ask you have that printed schedule. It should have your Tuesday through Friday morning schedule down here and Tuesday through Friday afternoon sessions down here. If you need to make a change in that schedule, you should know within the first 15 minutes of that session starting whether you're in the right place. If you're not in the right place, please leave your materials behind. Come out and see us at the registration desk, and we'll put you in to help you find the session that you ought to be in. Likely that there should be no problems with space, perhaps materials, but we'll get you accommodated because we want, again, this week to be of maximum benefit to you all. So, don't go from session to session because, again, the content is not in the pieces of paper that you're going to gather. The content is in the practice, and perhaps a little bit more practice that you're going to be doing within the context of the session. On the schedule, there's a few events that we would like to draw your attention to. That being, particularly this evening, is the McGraw-Hill Social Hour, Celebration of Excellence, and first time Direct Instruction Community Fair. So the Celebration of Excellence has to do with a few educators from around the country that have been nominated to receive recognition, and we're pleased to be able to honor them this evening, as well as a very special person from the DI community, one of our authors that we would like to present with a Lifetime Achievement recognition. We'll also, courtesy of our great friends at McGraw-Hill, be doing some fun door prize drawings. Must be present to win. We have they're giving away an iPad, so heck, that's worth coming in for. We've also, in your packet, there should be one of these guys, which is a beverage ticket. This is good for the beverage of your choice at the event, and there's some food and there's some good times. The community fair, there's some folks who are wanting to show how they're utilizing direct instruction, and so it's just a chance to see what's going on out in the world outside of your buildings. Other activities that are taking place, there is a picnic that will be held on Thursday evening over at Skinner Butte Park. It's a very short walk away. There's a map in your folder showing you how to get over there. It's about 8 blocks. Hamburgers, hot dogs, cold beverages, warm beverages if we don't get enough ice. Ha 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 ha. I know, and this is my day job. This is bad. Yes, please come to the picnic. It's a great time, as any of you who have been here in the past before would know. In fact, how many people have been to this conference before? I think you're going to be outnumbered. How many is this that this is the first time attending? Wow. Good for you. Thank you for coming. That was attested to actually. Typically on the pre-conference sessions, when we have people like Anita Archer, we had Patricia Berg in doing champs, and those are like the huge draws. We get over half of the people who are attending the like Anita Archer sessions. She's a fantastic speaker and has a lot to say. She had about 30 people yesterday. The Introduction to Direct Instruction session had 80 people in there, and so I'm glad that you all recognize the need for that initial instruction in the intro, so thanks for coming to that. Getting on to our exhibitors, I'd like to thank them for coming to display at the conference. We have educational resources just off in the hallway there, showing some of their materials, some supplements that they have to the DI programs. Good to Great Schools Australia is here trying to entice you into going to the land down under to go work in some of in the schools and the project they're starting. It's a phenomenal initiative that's going on in Australia, and they are looking for experienced direct instruction trainers, teachers, and other support staff, so you might consider that. I may need to after this. And lastly, McGraw-Hill Education is exhibiting out there. You might have seen them. They're the people who have provided us with all of our training guides. They provided us with great support in terms of letting all of you know about this event. They provide us with funding to help sponsor things such as the picnic, such as the social hour, and so we really very, very much thank them. If you're with McGraw-Hill, would you just stand up for just a quick moment? And thank you. We have a great contingent. They'll be in their booth and able to answer questions for you about various things that regarding the programs that you may have. Trainers, we have. I am not exaggerating when I say I feel like one of the luckiest people in the world to be able to work with the group of trainers that I get to work with. Their knowledge about, not just about direct instruction, but their knowledge about instruction in general. It's phenomenal, and that they are willing to, many of these are independent consultants, some of them still in the classroom, but that they're willing to come here to Eugene to share their expertise and their time with you all via NIFTY. It's phenomenal. They're great people. You'll find them to be very accessible within the context of the session. They'll try and answer your questions. And if it's something a little bit more specialized, they'll probably tell you, well, why don't we meet a little bit for a few minutes after session and discuss that. So you'll find them to be, again, knowledgeable and very accessible. So enough of this. I'd like to bring up our first keynote speaker and introduce Siegfried Zig Engelmann. Zig is an amazing, amazing person. I've had the privilege of knowing him for getting close to 40 years. And what's always amazed me about Zig is everything about him I think from the moment he gets up, but I'm not sure about that, but certainly until he goes to bed at night, it's about creating something. If he's not creating, then he's not him. So he creates instructional programs, he goes out to his property, and his recreation is creation of planting trees and watching them grow and tending to them. When it's pouring down rain, which never happens in Eugene, well, rarely lately. Anyhow, never happens, but he's an accomplished watercolor artist. A project he had a few months ago he was working with a guy to design like a braking system for motorcycles and wanted to get that patented. The variety of things, but it all seems to focus around creation. Anyhow, Zig was the senior developer of the direct instruction programs, invented them, created them back in the mid-60s in Illinois, moved out here to the Eugene area, to Eugene at the University of Oregon. Started up, as I said earlier, started up NIFTY. He's received many, many recognitions, including the award for education research from the Council of Scientific Society of Presidents. He's received honorary PhD from Western Michigan University, many other honors. The American Psychological Association honored him for his contributions to behavior education. And so with that, I just would like to bring up Zig Engelmann to have a few words with you. Thank you.
Well, now that the hard part's over, thank you, Brian. I don't know what to say, but I better figure it out pretty damn quickly. My address today it's all about teaching. And I was trying to think of things to talk about because I've done this opening, 41 times or something like that. And I've covered about everything, and I don't know that I covered it all that well, but I covered it. And I didn't want to repeat something on the outside chance that somebody was here at number 17 and they hear the same thing this time. I couldn't think of what to do, so I thought, and then it came to me, that the most basic, the most fundamental thing that it's all about is teaching. Not learning, not some amorphous structure, but teaching, where you cause kids to have knowledge they didn't have before. You create that through teaching. And I got to thinking about that, and it's amazing that instruction never became a real science. Because when you look back at math and other things, particularly like medicine in the 1880s, they were using leeches and they thought that the blood went through the liver and all that stuff. They didn't know what's its name from good apple butter. And look at them now. I mean, with the age of science, look at how it's changed. And then you look at education, and what has happened in education is a simple sidetrack, where nothing really happened at all. It didn't grow, it just existed, and it fed upon its own fat, and there was no other game in town. But the real game in town is it's all about teaching, and with teaching there's something different. Teaching and behavioral change are the most accessible scientific endeavors the world has. That means, what do you need to teach? Let me think. You need some subjects who don't know something. You need a teacher who does know it. And then you need some means of communication. And that's it. That's it. That's all you need. What other science, and this is science, if we're changing behavior, that's a scientific change. That's not just something by chance. It's predicted, it's lawful, and there are rules about it we can articulate. What other scientific event can you name that does that? There ain't a hell of a lot of them. Like, that stands alone. And what's really curious about it is that while at the beginning of the 20th century, other operations and quasi-sciences developed into remarkably sophisticated practices and sciences like medicine. And in the meantime, education went nowhere because education didn't realize it's all about teaching. All right, there are three components of scientific teaching. One, you need students who lack specific skill or knowledge. Two, you need a teacher or a device that provides specific input and practice. And three, you need some facts about what the teacher did and how the student's behavior changed. And that's a causal relationship. Hopefully, the data will show it wasn't accidental. The teacher did it and achieved changes in behavior in all the kids. That's scientific. I mean, why hasn't education become scientific? Oh, this is great. I have about 12 things I have to do here at once, and I'm good at doing one half. Okay, I hope it's this one. I hope it's this one. Holy crap. This one? Oh. Wow. That was hard. Oh. Now I got to change the page here. Holy crap. Well, we'll get through it. Okay, what is needed to create scientific teaching? Well, you need a couple, three things. Not many, but one, the material or content that causes changes in the student's knowledge. And that's measured by behavior, not by supposition. I mean, evidence that the kid couldn't do it now. We did that. That's the intervention. That's how it sounds. When you shorten it up a lot. And then there's an outcome. And the outcome is the kid can now do something the kid could not do before, and it's clearly caused by the instruction. Two, a teacher or means of presenting the input and documentation of the change in the student's skill or knowledge. That's it. What else in the world is that simple? And you say probably nothing. And then the related question is then why is teaching so damned obscure that in education they don't even mention it or talk about it? They talk about learning, they talk about situations, they talk about discussions, they talk about everything but teaching. Oh dear. Here we go. This is the maiden voyage here. Did it work? Did I change it? Oh, shit. What do I point at? I'll point at a mail card. Wow, how did I do that? Oh, yay. Wow, what a relief, let me tell you. The difference in the learner's behavior is the result of instruction. It shows how much student behavior changed as a function of the instruction. That's a causal relationship. You cause that behavior to happen. And that's glorious. I mean, in terms of its simplicity, its elegance, and its importance, because teaching is potentially a very powerful tool. Good teaching presents many examples of the same type, not just one and done. And the reason for that is that if you do a single example, it can be a concept or it can be an example of the concept you're teaching. Like I want to teach red, so I hold something up that's red. I hold something up that's red. And, but it's got 100 or 1,000 other features. It's not just red. It's a card with a white background. It's in my hand. It's in this state. And we could go on and list hundreds of other features that single example had. How do we rule them out? Do some more examples. I mean, it's that simple. Do some more examples, and it will take care of itself, because not all the examples are the same. So here we show a red ball. Here we show a red dress. Here we show a red-eyed guy. Why not? Well, that's how Dad looks. I mean, and when we present those other examples, the kid can abstract what's the same about him, and that's red. But the examples the students' work are structurally simple, so that more examples can be presented in a fixed amount of time. That's important. Why is rate important? Well, if we teach more than the average kid learns in a given amount of time, the kids we teach will become smarter. We will change those kids. We will accelerate their performance. We will make them gifted. We can turn ordinary kids into kids with fantastic repertoires who are capable of learning new material like that. Why can they learn it so fast? Because they've done what we call practice, practice, and practice. It's not an example of one or two, it's an example of many, and we've repeated them and used them and shown the kids that what they learn is important so that they can build upon it and they can use the things they learn. How is the value of an approach determined? It's a good question. The approach that teaches lower performing students the most in a given amount of time is judged superior to other approaches. I mean, that's what it's all about. If you teach more in less time, that's a better approach. Now, how do you know that? You can only know that by comparing approaches and figuring out which one teaches more in less time. But that's the game. And that should be the only game in town, that we want to design programs that teach things very fast to students so they learn more during a given school day, during a given school week, during a given year. And when that happens, we're accelerating those kids. They are no longer low performers, they're high performers. Now, I'll show you a couple of graphs in a bit. I'm on number 5. I think that's about 15, so we have a way to go here. This formula of teaching more in less time is adjusted by practical considerations of what we're teaching, like the amount of teacher training required, the cost of possible devices that are efficient and that are used in the teaching, and other such considerations. But all in all, the game is simple. Teach more in less time. Okay, how's the data used? This is a quickie, hopefully to build effective instructional programs and hopefully to support an effective theory of instruction, not more nonsense about what kids learn and how they cognitize things. Is cognitize a word? Who gives a damn? They use what we call neologisms all over the place. I mean, the floor is slippery with neologisms. Oh, that does sound ugly. Okay, but that's the game. And the more effective the theory of instruction is, the better the game is played. How close is the current educational belief system to using scientific teaching? Nothing in the current system is designed to create or respond intelligently to effective instruction. Nothing, not anything. You can read a book on what is supposed to be some topic that involves teaching, and there won't be a sentence about teaching. There will be references about the teacher participating and organizing and encouraging and using his or her knowledge of various relationships to clarify things for the students. But there's nothing specific, there's nothing detailed that would make a teacher a better teacher that will make me teach faster, that will allow me to teach more in a given amount of time. Nothing, not a word. I mean, it's sterile and it's ugly. No, I mean, I've been reading those things, and they are just flat ugly. You would have to wake up real early in the morning to get that ugly. I mean, the design of, in summary, the design of teaching and testing what you teach is never used or recognized in teaching. And that's so weird because it's like fields like medicine, before the turn of like in the 1800s, were primitive, and they really turned the corner, and they are remarkable now in terms of the devices they use, the knowledge they have. And here's education still clunking along and even denying that there is teaching, and denying it by stipulating, interacting with the kids, discussing things. In fact, Common Core standards, there's not hardly a word until the very last standard about teaching anything. All the rest of it is interacting, learning, and doing. I mean, it's pathetic. And what's equally pathetic is not one of the 24 members who designed that piece of crap have ever taught. But the most important component is teaching, and they had not one teacher there to at least provide something of a reality check. I mean, that's horrible. That's unbelievable. It's, well, later on in here, I give it the title that it rightfully deserves, and I mean it. It's medieval. I mean, it's magic, where you just hide from this stuff and you rephrase it. It can't go. It's not going to fly. And we're not doing good for kids if we're following these silly conditions that are designed by people who don't even know how to teach kids. Studies that evaluate approaches never include data on what students learn, exactly what they learn, or include an exhaustive account of what the students were taught. I mean, there is no measurement there to show here's what they learned and here was the input, so we can evaluate it in terms of, like, how valuable was it? How good a job did it perform? Okay, why don't traditional educators discuss details of what is taught? I think the primary answer is very obvious, and I base this on seeing several of them try to do the above. The primary reason is that they can't teach children effectively. They don't know how to, we're talking professors of education. We're talking people, even those who teach practica often have never done it, or they've done it but only on a superficial management level, not on the level of actually teaching kids what they don't know. So it's horrific, and this is a terrible thing to say, but I've, over the last couple of months particularly, have read a lot of this stuff, and I haven't read one serious word about teaching. I've taught about what kids can learn, what they can experience, what they can discuss, how they can interact, and how the teacher can interact effectively with them. But what does that effective interaction consist of if it's not measured in terms of what kids learn as a function of the interaction? That's never mentioned. That's never discussed, and there's no data on the above. It's a sad scene that they have never done it, probably never seen it done, and are threatened by its existence, but they have, very good reason to be threatened, because their position is untenable. Typically, investigators use standardized tests to judge what students learn. I mean, why? Did you teach the items on the standardized test? Hopefully not. What did you teach them? You taught them a bunch of information, rules or whatever, and applications. Did you check that? Did you test that? Wouldn't that be the first thing you would test? No, you go and give them a standardized test. What logic is that? The standardized test doesn't have all the items that you taught them, and it has items you didn't teach them. So what do you care about how they perform on those items? Excuse me. You care about what you taught and how you changed their behavior. So that's where it has to be. That's where the arrow goes. That's the target. And the other stuff about what they did or the items on this test. Who gives a damn? And, well, it's standardized. Yeah, well, standardize this while. I mean, standardization doesn't make much sense if you're trying to find out about the efficacy of what you taught. And if we were to weigh the actual information value of these two things, here, the kids scored at the 42nd percentile on the standardized test versus here's the stuff they learned that you taught, and they got 98% of it right. Which is more important? This by a ton. I mean, this is nothing. Who gives a damn? I mean, it's interesting, and nobody's saying you shouldn't do it, so you have standardized measures on children and teachers from different geographic areas. I mean, no, that's fine, that's good. But not without yikes. I got a sign here, I'm gonna have to speed up my presentation. So you hear me talking in a higher voice now. But these measures are insensitive to what students were taught or how their behavior has changed. And yet that's what we should be primarily interested in. These tests and traditional evaluation procedures don't provide sufficient information on what students learn, we just said that, so they are inappropriate for discovering what works and what doesn't. How do you figure out what works if 80% of your 30% of your measure is stuff the kids didn't even learn? What kind of inferences can you draw? You can only draw clean inferences if you have clean data. And that's the game. Give them clean data. And think of these tests as some form of medieval ritual, because that's what they really are. They're senseless. They make no sense in terms of teaching and instruction. Okay, faulty belief system. And this is something that's very important. We found this out when we were working with large groups of teachers, that many teachers assume that students should struggle to learn new material. There is nothing that could be farther from the truth. I mean, that is used as a sop for teachers who don't know how to teach it. And they say, well, it's good, the kids, I like it when they're struggling because they're thinking and they're figuring out how their mind works, and they'll be able to then learn faster. Not ever. It will never happen. It's a pipe dream. Because you learn only from mastery. You don't learn or build your ability to learn on not mastering something. And we've worked with different groups of kids who have, did I do something evil there with my bad foot? Bad foot, get it? No. We can't tolerate that kind of thing if we're really concerned with kids. We have to have, precise, accurate belief systems. They shouldn't struggle. And here's the fact, the more students struggle, the longer it takes for them to learn to mastery, and the easier it is for them to forget what they learned. And if you think of the first time you ever learned something brand new in a related subject area, I mean, the mistakes you made, how hard it was, and then once you got it, damn, the light came on, and you could solve that one. Then the next problem, I remember when I was learning algebra, I had a hell of a time. I couldn't understand the teacher or the example, A's and B's and all that crap. And then I said, the only way I'm going to get this is to read the book. And I read the book, and it said, A, B, C, those letters stand for numbers. So I put some numbers in and worked one of their forms, like ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. And damned if it doesn't work. I mean, it worked. And I knew what it was about. I knew the game then. And all they're doing is using these formulas that tell about numbers. Well, why the hell didn't you say so? And, make it reasonable. The more students struggle struggle, the longer it takes for them to learn to mastery, and the easier it is for them to forget what they learned. And we'll skip ahead here. Diet of struggling creates slow, unsure learners. And here's a fact that we have documented in several places. If naive students learn to mastery, learning later items of the same type, like if they're learning math, what it takes them to learn, the first discrimination, the second discrimination, and so forth, that their learning rate will increase 7 times. And my time is up right now, so I'll just fake it from here on out. Pretend like the clock has stopped. Okay, 7 times faster than learning of comparable earlier items. 7 times faster. Okay, looky here. This is a chart that shows deaf kids learning to identify words that are presented as tactual vibration. And at the beginning, the top, look at how slowly, like the black shows their mastery, the whole thing shows, the whole cell shows the total number. And you can see that as you go down there, they're not learning squat. And they're not learning, and they're not learning, and they're not learning. And then they learn, and they kind of regress. And then they learn some, and then it hits the fan, folks, and away they go. That they're learning at the end 7 times faster than they were after, day 20. 7 times faster. Okay, you don't like that? You'll love this. Okay, here's stuff we did with lots of kids in different IQ ranges. And if what I said is true, you can start with kids that have low IQs, you can accelerate their performance, and they'll perform as if they have higher IQs. They'll become smart. And so this first cell, those are kids with IQs of under 71 rather. And then the next one is 71 to 80, They go across to the last one. And those are kids with IQs of over 131. Look at those damn lines and the length or the distance between the dots. They're almost identical, with the lowest kids actually having an advantage probably over the highest kids in terms of how much they learn. And that may just be a function of the instruction, because we, might not have taught them at the rate they could have learned. But they were learning acceptably. But look at those kids under 71 IQ. They're performing like high-performing kids, except they're starting at a lower level. So, to induce maximum learning rate, the formula is ugly simple, okay? Place students in material they can learn without struggling greatly. Move through the material as fast as possible so you'll accelerate their performance with students achieving mastery. Don't you dare attenuate that mastery, or you'll what we call screw the moose. Okay, so finally, DI programs are designed to cause learning if the teacher transforms the examples, tasks, and material into lively teaching. But without the lively teaching, there ain't a hell of a lot going on. The program will not do it by itself, and it will not do it with a half-hearted help. Okay. The teacher has no control over what occurs in the students' homes or over the intellectual deficits that students come in with. Through teaching, however, the teacher can do something that no counselor, doctor, or sociologist can do. Give needy kids the skills to succeed and feel proud, rightly proud, of their achievement. Thank you very much.
And you cannot quit your day job either. So it's my pleasure to introduce our next keynote speaker. This will be Dr. Keith Hollenbeck. Keith is Director of Administrative Licensure Programs at the University of Oregon, among many other things. Keith's had 13 years experience in special education as a teacher coach, focused on implementing direct instruction curriculum K-12 to meet student needs. He's a special education administrator for 16 years, emphasizing institutionalizing empirically validated effective curriculum like DI and explicit instruction in both RTI and special education. He is also, of some note, one of the co-authors of the Understanding U.S. History, Volumes 1 and 2, also known as father of two, husband of one, and so it's my pleasure to introduce Keith Hollenbeck.
So thanks, Ziggy. I would like to talk about direct instruction and the pathetic, sterile, and ugly, in quotes on that piece, because we're university types, we like to talk about Common Core. Okay? Common Core is not something that we have control over or anything else, but I believe, and hopefully at the end you will hear in my message of why I'm not afraid of it, because I believe DI can match up perfectly. First, I'd like to thank NIFTY for asking me to speak at the 41st Annual National Direct Instruction Conference. I don't know if they're going to be so excited at the end of the conclusion of my speech, but, okay. I think I got asked to speak is because I learned using DISTAR and morphographic spelling. From the looks on people's faces out there, they're going, he used what? Think of it from the quizzical looks. Think of it as the precursor to reading mastery and spelling mastery. And what I'd like to say to all the young people out there, that the clay tablets, the DISTAR clay tablets, were much better than the papyrus reed versions that I learned from. Finally, I hearken back to what my father's greatest line about any speech. He said it should have a spectacular beginning, a brilliant ending, and not much in between. Well, Dad, I'm going to let you down on all 3 points. So, the pathetic, the sterile, and the ugly. I'm going to quickly touch on Common Core because I want to bring it back as examples. And the standards, the Common Core standards demand not just rote memorization of facts that Ziggy talked about, but for an understanding of material deep enough that students can effectively integrate and apply that knowledge. I also believe in my heart, though, it's hard to argue that different states should have differing curricular and instructional standards from an equity perspective. It's also hard to argue that we don't want students to succeed in their community, their careers, and their schooling. So the Common Core standards, the ones I'm going to be talking about are from Oregon, but Oregon's Common Core standards look a lot like everybody else's Common Core standards, thus the word common, and that students should have a basis in reading, writing, language, speaking, and listening. I'd also like to just reiterate that arguing against proficiency of standards in those areas from an equality and achievement perspective is really a no-win situation. So, as Ziggy mentioned, there are 2 main tests, SBAC and PARC, for measuring. It's a large-scale measurement. And I'm not here to debate whether people like the SBAC or the PARC. I will say that from an instructional standards aligned to new tests, that it makes sense to me from a psychometric point of view. And I studied psychometrics. I sort of think that if you actually teach it, that you should test it. I agree there. Also, having a common metric across states should remove the current state testing mess we presently suffer. We shouldn't really have states that have state miracles that really didn't happen. Okay? It's no slam on Texas, but in case you didn't quite get that joke right there. But that being said, there are limitations that have been pointed out about large-scale assessments, and they must be acknowledged. If your district or school is making program and curricular changes solely based on large-scale assessments, please stop now. Let me repeat that. Please stop now. Large-scale results merely are a starting point for curricular or program discussions, and that discussion must include valid formative assessments. So my first shout out to DI is the embedded curricular assessments for the new people. If you have a student or a group that does not make a particular program curricular benchmark, please do not think about or think that the student will catch up later or will get it in a couple lessons. Okay? The embedded curricular assessments within DI are extremely important components. Please follow them. And if you pair the embedded curricular assessments with benchmark testings, like EasyCBM, DIBELS, or other bases, you have a basis for high-quality curricular and program discussions that are database decision. Before we do this, I'd like to also say what the standards are not. Okay? Importantly, the standards do not tell you how you should teach. They don't tell you how you should teach. The standards make references, but the standards must therefore be complemented by well-developed, great curriculum like Reading Mastery and other DI programs. The other part is a great deal has been left to the discretion of teachers and curriculum developers. I'd really leave it to the curriculum developers like Zig and others. And it is those curriculum developers, and I use big DI curriculum developers, okay? I want to make that point right there. Not any curriculum developer, but specific ones that you should be or should focus on. The range of stuff that people see, and they require a range of rigorous academic preparation, particularly in early grades, and there's social components to this around that. And the social, emotional, physical development of kids is really important. You're not leaving it out. And make it fun. Please, please do not teach DI if you have mastered the art of monotone. Okay? Don't. Okay? Find someone else to teach your lessons for you. So, the question is, will Common Core standards increase student achievement? Bob Marzano would say, yeah, maybe not so much. Maybe, maybe not. There's actually no research out there that has proved or concluded that standards have been linked to student growth. Ziggy touched on it. It's all about teaching. It's about the teacher and the curriculum. So the standards don't actually translate into curriculum pedagogy or student achievement. A plausible claim could be that Common Core may not raise student achievement. I don't bet, but I may bet on this one. If you use the bad teaching, probably not going to work. Essentially, the standards or the studies imply that Marzono's talked about is standards in and of themselves cannot drive gains in student achievement. However, standards linked to effective teaching practices and excellent curriculum like DI can make a difference. So, they do not include interventions. The standards don't include the interventions. That's the curriculum point. The other part is lurking in between Common Core and Oregon's K-12. Now, Oregon has a K-12 literacy that sort of talks about that, is what we call the foundation, Common Core foundational skills. And I believe if you look at those Common Core foundational skills, you will actually see how DI fits in perfectly. So, I want to go by quickly on these, some drive-by. I'm going to actually loop back. First one here is around print concepts. The next one's around phonics and word recognition. The next one's around fluency and accuracy. So, what I'd like to say is that the Common Core addresses the what. The K-12 literacy framework in Oregon addresses the how, the strategies, the instruction, and the assessment. Now, the one other part that I really want to say about in the Oregon K-12 literacy framework, and one of the reasons I really like it, was developed by a DI person, Ed Kameanui, and his shop, CTL, Center on Teaching and Learning. Okay? So these standards, if you read them, they sort of sound like reading a teacher's book, or the front part of the teacher's book, of a DI manual. Okay? It was with malice and forethought, I believe, they wrote those. So, the K-12 literacy, it's based on a response to intervention process. It's based on student data. Wow, novel. Okay, you heard that. Ed actually sat in and talked to Ziggy too many hundreds of years ago. And so we want things based off student data. I do want to cover the one part I did say, or Brian did say, I have my background in special education. I take this from there, from the state of Washington. And I had talked about at-risk kids, RTI. Okay, so on IEPs and state standards, what it does not mean. Don't use the standards alone to determine IEP goals. What it does mean, refer to the standards when determining IEP goals. And please do not just cut and paste the goals into the IEPs. Okay? So, now I'm looping back. Concepts about print. I've highlighted the print concept. The first one focuses on print concepts and tells you should teach your students to follow words from left to right. Districts across the U.S. are expending huge chunks of budget getting teachers together to alter curriculum or current curriculum or create new curriculum to teach the standard. My problem with the solution is the people tasked with the alteration or creation of that curriculum aren't design specialists. I offer you a more cost-efficient and smarter solution. Everybody ready? You can just follow your reading mastery textbook that teaches students print concepts about reading words from left to right, and whoa, the left to right arrows for visual cueing are already drawn in for you. You don't even have to waste out a green pen. Text questioning and Common Core. It wants you to read closely to determine what the text says explicitly. And you can't read that. Amazingly. It looked okay on the way back from Bend last night when I was typing in the car. Those must have been the curves right there that sort of swish things around. Okay, what it asks you to do is pause during the reading. Okay, what this says is demonstrate. So you pause during the reading to ask some questions. And you ask and answer questions about key details of the text. Okay? I was going to make a joke about SOBs, Save Our Beagles, but I didn't want to use any bad language, but then I realized I was following Ziggy, so it was okay. I could say that stuff. Wouldn't it be better if the text actually gave you, or gave the teacher hints about where to stop and ask those key detail questions by putting cues into the text? So if you're not using DI, look what they did. And wouldn't it even be better if the teacher text gave me those key detail questions so I wouldn't have to ask, or I could be consistent on the questions I ask between groups? Oh, and only my teacher text actually gave me the answer to those questions, so I could be more consistent in my feedback about student answer correctness. Fluency and accuracy. You have to read grade level text with purpose and understanding. I love that, with purpose. Okay? Not going there. But you also have to be accurate. So when altering your non-DI curriculum, make sure you mark your teacher's book and all the student books and note the expected fluency and accuracy you want for a passage. By marking up one of the books, no one's surprised, teacher or student, about meeting or missing the criterion. Wow, it's already done in this example. It's amazing. Okay? Illustrations. Wouldn't it be wonderful if you didn't have to use your prep time to create illustrations that were associated with your lesson on Australia? But when you're doing your illustrations about Australia, remember to signal the interspersed questions, and again, you could just use reading mastery. Here's another example from the text. This example, though, what I love about it, it has a personalized question. You may not be able to see it there. It says, what happened 3,000 years ago when Keith was young and using Distar? Sight words. Reads common high-frequency sight words. One of the reading mastery sight words, though, I am going to take reading mastery to task on this one, is the word said, S-A-I-D, said. Okay, I happen to be in the deep south, and I stated that said cannot be sounded out, and thus was considered a sight word. During break, a very nice person came up to me and said with a very southern drawl, said. That's right. You can sound it out. Okay, so maybe McGraw-Hill should make regional reading mastery lessons. I also happen to be in the East, and I found out that in the Northeast, the AR does not always make the R sound, because they told me where to park my car. So the regional one that they're making for that sound is AR has the AU-AW sound as you're teaching this, so we can teach kids to read signs on the street and communicate with everybody on the street also. And inflectional endings. So you're reading words. Now, you can put your own list together during your prep time, after school, when you have all those free hours, weekends, if you don't have family, friends, or anybody else in your life. This example is the teaching ing. It also involves onset rhyme while actually teaching 2 skills in one quick lesson. Okay, I'm pretty excited about this one right here. Multisyllabic words. So, one of the foundational reading skills in Common Core involves teaching multisyllabic words, or it tells you should teach multisyllabic words. In this example, what you'll see is T-I-O-N as the shun sound. This skill's a little tougher for me when I got up in there, but I'm sure most of you in the audience can tell all the multisyllabic rules in your sleep. And I had a little trouble, so I had to actually teach T-I-O-N from the direct instruction books. Again, in this example, T-I-O-N also involves onset rhyme, nation, station, vacation, and location. More wow in my life. Here's an example taken from Anita, Mary, and Vicky's rewards. Closed, open, vowel combinations are controlled vowel, consonant E, and consonant LE. Be still, my multisyllabic beating heart. Okay? I could actually look really brilliant talking to my children about what they learned in school and that. By the way, my kids actually went through all this stuff. And that's a big shout out to all the DI people. I have a child that graduated grad school at Vanderbilt and another school that's graduating grad school at University of Maryland. I don't think the free to vary reading method that they learned in school was really particularly effective, but they did get to play with DI curriculum for a long period of time. Okay, text information. The Common Core doesn't suggest, it tells you that they want more informational text. Well, why not use Reading Mastery instead of creating your own informational text? Again, well-designed, cost-effective, cost-efficient. It's an alternative to creating your own insects curriculum. Higher order thinking. The problem solution effect diagram that you're going to see on the next, or in the upcoming slides, talks about teaching higher order thinking and then the application of that piece. Remember, the new standards overlay a demand not for just rote memorization of facts, but for an understanding of material deep enough that students can effectively integrate and apply the learned knowledge. And I believe DI can actually do that. Here's the text. It's a problem solution effect. On the diagram on the next slide, you will see, it comes from a textbook created by Doug Carnine and colleagues, and I laugh when I say colleagues. The PSE schema, problem solution effect, was developed to explain historical events as part of understanding U.S. history curriculum. It was premised on the theoretical underpinnings that historical events can be explained using a problem solution effect expository text structure. This is the PSE, and I want to go through a couple exercises with you on this one. First of all, let me explain PSE. What we say, there are really 2 types of problems. You have rights of people and economic problems. Those are the problems people or the common problems people and groups face in historical and or current settings. Within those, and we covered it under economic, we said that food, clothing, and shelter were part of that problem. We said that there were 5 solution types. You can accommodate, dominate, move, invent, or tolerate. There is the mnemonic admit. Okay? Pretty classy, quick, huh? Let me tell you the backside of this one. I was presenting about the PSE diagram in Minnesota, and it was to a Catholic school group. Before we had the accommodate, dominate, move, invent, and tolerate, admit, if you change those around, it also spells damn it. I had a nun in a habit come up and ask me, how do you know those so quickly? I had 2 options. I could lie and, get more black marks on my little check mark somewhere. Or I could say, you just learn them. Well, we came home and we got together. There was a group of us. We got together and said, man, we got to come up with a better way because I can't keep lying to people in there. A child that I know very well that was in 5th grade at the time said, well, it also spells admit. Of course we knew that because we're all educated. We're sitting around. We have a boatload of doctorates sitting around the table spelling damn it. And, okay, so she didn't get paid for it or anything else. She got paid eventually. Come on, she got paid. She went to Vanderbilt. My money and my daughter went to Vanderbilt. Okay, let's be clear. So, 5 solution types, 2 problem types, 5 solution types, and 3 effects. The problem is solved. Everybody's happy, everybody goes home. Never has happened in history. Never has happened in history. But we were working with the history people, the history department, and we had to put that in for them as a suck-up move. Creates a new problem for the person that just solved the problem, or a new problem for a different group. Or, worst of all fields, is your problem continues. And so you circle back through. So let's use a historical example from the Pilgrims. The Pilgrims had what? Rights of people, economic problem. Which one? Okay. The Pilgrims had a rights of people or economic problem. Oh, I just taught the kids a sentence starter for a paragraph, and they look really brilliant. So let's add a few facts to that. The Pilgrims solved their problem by moving. The effect of now that was the second paragraph. The Pilgrims, I just taught a 3-paragraph, I'm teaching you a 3-paragraph essay too, oh, by the way. The effect of the Pilgrims moving was that a new problem. It created some problems for them, but it also created huge problems for the indigenous population. We had an LD student that we taught. We had multiple students on this, but the one I was most proud of, we had an LD student that created a PSE chain of how the French and Indian War was a causal factor of the American Revolution. She hated history. Her line was, history's about old dead white guys. Yep. But we taught her to do that. We taught her to write. Now, we also had because we did this also with behaviorally disturbed kids, because if you can teach behaviorally disturbed kids things, flat out, you can teach general ed like mad, or you can teach middle school. And I use behaviorally disturbed and middle school sort of interchangeably right there. So we had the young lady, we taught her, she had flaming red hair, and it wasn't because it was on fire, but her personality was. And she came back to visit, because we ran this multiple years, and she said, I'm doing really well in history at high school. Good. She goes, but I didn't tell him. You taught me that problem solution effect. Okay. Gradually, she walks out. She stomps out, and I'm thinking, woohoo! I did it. We did it. Way to go. Okay. I also did this with, and you can morph this over into narrative text structure. I was doing this project with adjudicated youth in lockup. So I want to take you through problem solution effect, Goldilocks and the Three Bears. From a legal system perspective for kids. Goldilocks had a problem. She was lost. Economic. She was looking for shelter. How did Goldilocks, what was her first solution? Breaking and entering. Good, you guys got this going. Okay? Well, she went into someone's house, but we know that's breaking and entering. She was just entering, but she was illegal entering into a private residence, okay? I will say that my adjudicated middle school, high school kids actually knew all those rules and laws. I didn't ask why they knew that, but they knew it. So she lets herself into a house with her handy-dandy lock pick set or something like that, and the effect was what? Was her problem solved? A new problem or problem continues? New problem. What's her new problem? She's hungry. Remember, rights of people, economic, food, shelter. So the first one she was solving was getting shelter. The second one, she's looking for food. She solved the problem by inventing, we say inventing. Anybody know what that's called? What she engaged in? She ate the porridge, but what's it called legally? No, it's called theft by consumption. It's why you get arrested in stores for eating grapes, or you can be. If you harvest as you walk through a store, it's theft by consumption. Okay? It's amazing that I know this stuff, isn't it? It makes shopping so much more fun. So the effect was she had a new problem. Her new problem was she was tired. She had a safety thing. So she found what? Yeah, she found some places to sit. But she just didn't sit. She destroying property. Good. There's some people in here that I'm wondering about. I got to say that. Okay, you're right on. Yes. Destruction of personal property. She engaged in that piece right there. That's her problem. Then she moves into her solution type. A new problem comes in, and she is tired. She comes up and she invents a new one. She gets in bed, but the three bears show up and she leaves quickly. Anybody know what that? Yeah, fleeing the scene of a crime. Or one of the kids actually said defrauding an innkeeper. Okay? This is pretty cool, you know? And then they wanted her problem to continue because they wanted her to be arrested, you know, because that's why they were there, for doing some similar behaviors on that. So they thought Goldilocks should be arrested. For those of you with small children, you probably will never read Goldilocks and the Three Bears the same way. So the last thing before we get into that I want to talk about is text complexity. Common Core talks about the need for text complexity. It goes on and says that you have to have these, it has to have a staircase. And they developed these lexiles. They didn't really develop. Metametrics actually developed the part. And so here's my pop quiz for you. According to the Lexile measurement used in the new Common Core standards, which of these books would be complex enough for 9th graders? Huckleberry Finn, To Kill a Mockingbird, Jane Eyre, or Sports Illustrated for awesome kid athletes? Anybody want to guess? The correct answer is D. Since all the others have Lexile scores so low, they're deemed appropriate for 4th, 5th, or 6th graders. So again, here is the Lexile bands. Little problem, and it wasn't just Sports Illustrated for Kids. I'm not bashing Sports Illustrated for Kids. It's one of my favorite reads in the dentist's office. Okay, so the Lexile framework, though, the Grapes of Wrath would be appropriate for 2nd or 3rd because it has a score of 680. That's counterintuitive, but the Grapes of Wrath is written and has very complex ideas, but they're written in very commonplace language. The Library Mouse. It's a 32-page children's book. It's appropriate for 4th or 4-year-olds about. It has a Lexile score of 830. Stephanie Meyer's 498-page young adult novel, Twilight, though, garners a Lexile of 720. Beverly Cleary's Ramona Quimby, age 8, has a Lexile of 860. Michael Crichton's Jurassic Park has a score of 710. Within a single chapter of Pride and Prejudice, the Lexiles range from 670 to 1310, with an average of 952. Mine is a word of Lexile caution. Do not just rely on the Lexile number when assigning books. I leave you with this last piece, the last point, and it's taken from eSchool News. What a great source. You can engage in massive curriculum redesign based on Common Core expected student outcomes so that you can differentiate instruction by breaking lessons down into manageable components at a high fiscal cost by people not trained in curriculum design, or you can just use direct instruction curriculum. And direct instruction does it really, really well. This is Reading Rainbow. Don't trust me. Go ask. Go ask Nifty. So Nifty writes about reading mastery here, RSME, and they found out that only 23 of the 427 standards weren't covered by the program, and then they gave you suggestions on how to do those. You're saying, well, yeah, I use math. Okay. Know that on the math piece, it met all the standards. All the standards. Did I mention all the standards? And it's well scripted. It's smart. It has everything for you. Or you can use your own time and do all the stuff to make it sort of look like reading mastery, and then you're stealing. Which then takes me back to my problem, solution, effect piece. So what I'd like to say is thank you for supporting direct instruction. It's about time that reading, math, and writing standards for regular education curriculum started to come up to the standards that DI has long achieved. Just say no to regular curriculum. Just say yes to DI. Thank you very much.
So we have a few minutes before your sessions are going to start to transition over. The folks who are doing the college credit will be here for just another few minutes if you need to get any more information on the college credit to sign up for it. You might also note that we were videoing this as we went along. We'll have copies of the DVD of these presentations in the store at lunchtime. Go on to your sessions. Have a great week. Let us know if we can help you, and thank you for being here.